Oh, you touch my tra-la-la. My ding-ding-dong. Oh, you touch my tra-la-la.
You know, I'm really starting to think that maybe I'm doing something that's causing the Amazon team to not want to talk to me. No idea what it might be though. Anyway, before I digress too much, TRADESKILLs. It's actually pretty insane how well fleshed out these systems are, so we'll try and break it down into something a bit simpler to understand. So when you're looking at the TRADESKILLs, there's three main categories to consider. You have the gathering skills, you have the refining skills, and the crafting skills. We'll start with the basis of all crafting in the game, gathering. This is the part where you go out into the world and collect a bunch of resources wherever you can. You'll find them everywhere, and for the most part, almost anything in the game is a gatherable resource. But don't go running off into the wilds to die for that shiny rock or pretty feather just yet. You're gonna need some tools first. So for each gathering profession, there's a corresponding tool that you need to get a hold of. You're going to need an axe for logging, a pick for mining, a sickle for plant harvesting, a knife for skinning, and surprise surprise, you're going to need a fishing pole if you want to go fishing. But hold on, how do I go about getting these tools? The unhealthy voices in my brain keep asking me. For the tier 1 stuff, all you really need to do is drop down a camp, have some flint, and have a few twigs on you that you've picked up, and start crafting your tools. Once you start moving out of the beginner level gathering, however, you'll want to find something a little bit sturdier, something a little more secure. And this is where the other two ways come into play. So the second way to get better tools is to just buy them at a trading station you find in a settlement. And the third way is to apply the engineering crafting skill. Find a forge in a settlement and craft it yourself. Since this isn't really a video about tools, let's keep the rest pretty short. There's 5 tiers you gotta worry about. Tier 1 being the worst and tier 5 being the best. Your tier 1 stuff is the most basic material you can find, some twigs, some rocks, and when you get to tier 5, you're looking at specialist material like orichalcum?
Orichalcum.
Yeah, that one. Tools, just like in real life, wear down over time, but they can be repaired fairly easily. Some of the tools you can pick up or craft yourself have increased bonuses to gathering yield and durability, and the better your tool, the faster you can gather resources. Now, when it comes to gathering, there's 2 components you're worried about. First, it's your tools, like we've already spoken about. The second is the ability to track them. Now, the tracking skills for any resources are just above the levels you require to gather the thing. Now, if you're looking to lore reasons as to why you need a higher gathering skill in order to track the same thing that you're trying to gather at a lower level, you want to turn to the teachings of Confucius, which goes something along the lines of, when a botter has the ability to track all resources from the start of a game, one can expect a large payout, but that payout isn't to the players. Now, gathering's not really that difficult to figure out. Logging is tree chop skill. Start with small tree and level up to take on big tree. Mining is metal, stones, and oil. Start with iron and basic rock and work your way up to chipping out the glowy stuff. Skinning, well, this one's all about removing the skin jacket from various animals. And now look, I know marauders are animals, but the New World team's kind of gone out of their way to make sure they're not skinnable. At least not yet. Let's just make sure one more time. Next on the gathering list is harvesting, which is used to pick up any of the plants you might find out in the open world. There's a vast diaspora of them, many different species. But let's be honest. You locate plant, you remove plant, you take plant with you. On to the next one. Now, fishing in New World is a highly complex and integrated system where you're trying your best to... It's for fish. What were you expecting? All you really need to do for this profession is whip out your rod, find where it's wet, use some bait that you've bought or crafted, and you're all set to go. I just want you to keep in mind that fishing has a mini game attached to it, so it's a little bit more interactive than most MMOs. So don't go thinking that you're going to be clicking a lure when you hear a sploosh noise while you pay less attention to the game than your average Ubisoft dev. There's an actual minigame here where you try yanking on your rod as hard as possible without breaking it before releasing the pressure so things don't go horribly wrong. Something a little bit more notable about fishing is, yes, I'm 5. I'll make as many dick jokes as I can. Next we can look at refining. So like I said, gathering's pretty easy. All you have to do is gallop around the world and, well, you'll pick up resources as you go. But you know what's not easy? Dragging 200 tons of resources back to a settlement just to create some square rocks. So what you're doing with refining is taking your raw gathered resources and turning them into more workable ingredients that can then be used in crafting. So go ahead and snort some blue dust that someone else convinced you has magical properties, drag all those resources back to a settlement and get to crafting. And don't forget to bring along those secondary resources that you need to make sure you do your job correctly. So woodworking ties into the logging skill. Now to work your wood like a real pro, you're going to need some sandpaper and some patience. This is mostly because wood is heavy and there's only so much of it you can drag back at once. Smelting is the stuff you do to the shiny rocks after you're done mining them. So for this profession, you're going to need a smelter, some type of flux, and sometimes a little bit of charcoal, which you can get from wood that you've picked up while gathering. Now stone cutting comes from the other side of mining. You take big rough stone, turn it into small shaped stone, and you also get jewels and gear for socketing, in case you're up for bedazzling yourself with a few extra stats. Oh yes, also, stone cutting is where you get to whip out your orbs and use them as keys to enter certain arenas and expeditions. So, definitely not a profession to ignore. Now leatherworking is so you can prepare the flesh of your enemies once you've peeled it off of them. What you're basically doing here is taking skins and turning them into usable hides for later crafting. Then there's weaving, which is linked to the harvesting profession, just for those who find cloth more their thing. Then finally, the one we all care about because it's where you get all the good gear, crafting. Keep in mind here that crafting is not a one-to-one-to-one system. There's a kind of synergy here where you need multiple refined materials to begin your journey into crafting. It's almost like these systems are immersive or something. Now we're going to go ahead and list these by workbench instead of by profession, purely because some professions share the same workbench. So first off, there's good old engineering. Now engineering you're mostly going to use for different ammo types for ranged weapons and tools to become the ultimate Minecraft god. Alongside engineering, at the same workshop, there's furnishing. Now you might just be thinking to yourself that furnishing is just for turning that little shack in the settlement into something a little bit more livable, and it is. But there's more to it than that. Furnishing allows you to create repair kits for your gear, some mini buff stuff, and house trophies for useful prolonged buffs when you're out adventuring in the world. So not really a necessary profession, but if you're gonna min-max like an autist, this is definitely not one to ignore. Then there's weapon and armor smithing. So from the weaponsmithing profession, you'll get weapons and honing stones to sharpen those weapons. From the armor smithing profession, you get armor, bags, bombs, and jewelry. Also both do repair kits as well, so you don't have to pick up furnishing. Then onto the spicier stuff. Arcana. You thought I was going to say cooking, didn't you? So you'll want to find the Arcana repository for this one. No secondary professions here. Arcana is mostly for the magic users. This is where you get your staves, your gauntlets, and a few odd buff potions here and there. You can also use this workbench to upgrade elemental essences for other crafting skills. Then on to cooking. And there's only one real thing to say here if you're looking for the workbench. Get back in the kitchen and make me a See, the food in New World is for more than just satiating hunger. It's used for health and mana recovery, various buffs, and bait for fishing. Cooking is also the profession where you get your dyes, so you can properly play coordinated color dress up with your friends. I'm not judging. Now that covers the basis of the trade skills. These systems are pretty extensive and intricate, and you can really end up getting some of the best gear and buffs that the game has to offer. So now with all that being said, we're still not done. There's a few other things you should probably know about the crafting systems, a few tips and why you should actually care about these systems. So firstly, your attributes end up affecting your gathering and crafting yields, which means that the way you even spec your character has something to do with how much you get out of gathering. And what type of gathering. If your faction owns a territory, you might end up getting a few luck bonuses for your trade skills. You can gather materials not just from gathering, but from killing enemies as well. And materials have different rarities alongside having different tiers, which means that there are certain special rare materials that you'll want to go out and find if you want that legendary weapon or piece of armor. While you're crafting, if you go ahead and sprinkle a little bit of that Azoth into your work, it gives you a chance of getting better gear with extra bonuses. In-game, there are single-use artifact recipes that can crank out really unique stuff, so look out for those at higher levels. Workstations and settlements also have tiers, so you'll need to find the ones of the highest tiers to make the best stuff, or Worst case scenario, you'll have to actually pitch in to help a settlement upgrade the workstation you need to level at. So final thoughts on the trade skill professions in New World. I think these systems are amazing. I think they've done a great job in fleshing these out, and this is the kind of complexity that this game can handle. These are the kind of systems that should exist not just in the crafting systems, but all across New World, and I hope to see that over time. You can really use each and every single one of these systems to make a name for yourself in game. You can become that specialized crafter that everyone on your server trusts, that everyone knows, oh, that's the guy who knows how to make the best swords in the game. Oh, that's the guy who makes the best armor. Hey, you need some really good furniture or trophies for your house? Well, then go to him over there. He's the best at it. But amazing doesn't mean flawless. And that's important to remember. You see, there's a little bit of a dark cloud that kind of hangs over all these amazing systems. And it's actually pretty easy to exploit the players on this point. If Amazon goes ahead and integrates all these crafting systems into the cash shop, it will ruin all these progressions. It will make it far more difficult for you to distinguish yourself as a character right up against someone who can just pay to level faster than you can. Not only that, but over time, these systems have to evolve. They cannot stay stagnant. There needs to be more added onto them, because as the game continues to age, more and more people will end up maxing out their crafting skills. This means that ultimately, over a longer period of time, you might not end up being as special as you initially were when the game released, and maybe a few months afterwards. Overall, I'm pretty amazed by these systems. I think they're great, they're fantastic, and all I really want at the end of the day is for AGS to keep on working on the crafting system alongside other parts of the game, and to not put any component of the crafting systems into the cash shop. So I hope this video helps you out a bit in figuring out which of the trade skill systems might be for you in New World, or if you might like them at all. Let me know if I've missed anything important in the comments below, because there's absolutely no way I've managed to cover everything about these systems. And keep in mind that Amazon could potentially change, add, or remove things about the crafting systems over the coming few months, entirely depending on how much the players are able to exploit the hell out of these systems in game. It's early days, and the beta is just about to release. So, big thank as always to all my subscribers, both old and new. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. See you in the next video.